Do you remember 1974? The first McDonald's opening in the UK, Bagpuss hitting our TV screens, and of course the birth of the one and only James Blunt. But it was also the same year the first Golf emerged from the Volkswagen production mill, and 38 years later, with 6 models preceding it, we have this, the mk7 Golf, available in January 2013.
With 29 million Golfs being sold worldwide since '74, Volkswagen has a recipe for success in its cabinet. So does VW still have the right formula to attract buyers, or is it time for them to find a new cookery book?
We're going to break it down into 4 different sections before casting our initial first drive verdict. And first off, it's styling. Up close, you can see the changes in the detail. Volkswagen's extended the wheelbase, so the distance from the front wheels to the rear wheels. So the front wheels are further forward, making the bonnet look longer, and the cabin itself moved further back into the chassis. This is what luxury cars are designed to look like, according to Volkswagen.
The line running down the side of the doors is designed to make the car look more grounded with a sportier stance, and the wide C-pillar derived from the Mark II Golf remains, though it does restrict rear visibility somewhat. The Golf's face has gone through very little change, however you will notice the bonnet is higher than the wings now, the opposite to the previous model.
With the styling all combined, it is, as Volkswagen says, more an evolution than a revolution. But we would have liked to see more effort made with the design, so it doesn't look like just a facelifted Mark VI, rather a next step in the generation.
Dimension changes from the previous Golf have had varying effects. It's 56mm longer and 13mm wider, improving the overall feeling of space and increasing shoulder and elbow room slightly in the front and back rows.
However, headroom has dropped by 28mm to allow for the sportier, more profiled lower roof. I'm 5'7" and there's just about enough headroom in here for me, but if you are taller, around 6'2", 6'3", you may want to get inside to try one for yourself.
Upgrades over the previous model include a 5.8-inch touchscreen as standard. Sat-nav is optional, and when selected also includes traffic sign recognition.
In the back, legroom's claimed to have increased by 15mm. Doesn't sound like a lot, but as you can see with me sat here, I mean, the driver's seat's set in my driving position. I know I've got short legs, but there is ample room in the back here. It does feel spacious for a medium-sized hatchback.
And improvements have been made to the boot, with an additional 30 litres on offer over the Mark VI Golf, increasing to 380 litres in total with the seats up.
And more good news is this boot sill has got lower, so it should be easier to load heavier objects, like our videographer's quite heavy camera bag with all his equipment in it.
Overall, we think Mark VI owners would be able to tell the improvements made in terms of overall quality, equipment and interior room. With VW's medium hatch so popular among family buyers and company car drivers, the changes made under the bonnet may be more important to most people than how the Golf looks.
So it's in this department that Volkswagen's making the boldest claims of the Golf. It says that across the range, CO2 emissions have been reduced by 13.9%. Now this accounts for 119,000 tonnes of emissions reductions in Europe alone. But the standout performer is the new 1.6 TDI Blue Motion. Now this claims to return 88 miles to the gallon and emit just 85 grams per kilometre of CO2 emissions, meaning free car tax. Unfortunately, this engine won't be available until later in 2013, so buyers of diesel engines will have to stick to the standard 1.6 diesel or a higher capacity 2 litre diesel.
As a whole, it sounds like the new Golf will be much kinder to your bank account. We can't promise you'll be able to achieve these MPG claims until we put the car through the full Which lab test, but we'll have our first results available before Christmas.
So currently we're driving the 1.4 TSI petrol engine with ACT, which is the Active Cylinder Management System. Now this shuts down 2 of the 4 cylinders when the engine's under low or average load, so it's more efficient when you're travelling in town. Now the 0 to 62 time isn't that impressive, it's over 8 seconds, it's 8.4 seconds. But the engine's surprisingly good, it revs quite nicely, it spins up quite quickly, so it feels urgent all the time. The cylinder shutdown system actually feels a lot more natural than I thought it would. It doesn't feel like it's unnerving when it switches between 2 and 4 cylinders. And I've tried to catch it out a couple of times by fluctuating the speed, but it's reacted accordingly. It is quite impressive.
Refinement, like in all modern Golfs, continues to be impressive. Even on 17-inch alloy wheels, there's very little road roar from these tyres, and the free revving engine isn't that audible from inside, and it's only the slightest hint of wind noise.
So the Golf isn't the most communicative car that we've driven. You have to keep it in full attack sport mode to get the best response from driving input and feedback. But it's got progressive steering for the first time, so the steering gets heavier the higher speed you're travelling at, so it's easier to manoeuvre in town, and it should be a bit more respondent when you're driving at speed in the bends.
The brakes are strong, but do offer quite a lot of initial bite, which will take some time to get used to.
To summarise the driving quality, it's a progression of the Golf's characteristics that we've already come to know, so it's still not the sportiest of hatchbacks, but there's plenty of refinement and comfort. It's a nice place to be on long, tedious motorway journeys, and we can imagine it'd be a really good car to have for running around town for the school runs and shopping runs. But for us, the best news comes at the showroom, because it looks like prices are going in the right direction for consumers. The entry-level car, which is a 1.2 TSI petrol with 3 doors, prices in at £16,330. That undercuts the previous generation's entry-level car by 95 quid. I know 95 quid doesn't sound like much, but it's a decent family meal out.
The cheapest diesel, the 1.6 TDI, is slightly over £1,000 more expensive than the current base spec 1.6 diesel, but the Mark 7 will cost you nothing in car tax and is 15 brake horsepower more powerful.
When you take into account the improvements in efficiency and kit, including plenty of safety equipment as standard, the Mark 7 Golf looks like decent value for money over the current Golf. Until we get the Mark 7 Golf into our lab for a full test report, it's hard to say for now if the claims made about efficiency will be able to stand up. We'd recommend to anyone looking at buying a current Audi A3 to really think about an equivalent Golf. You'll get similar driving dynamics, similar value retention, and similar levels of kit for a slightly reduced purchase price. To read the full first drive report on the Mark 7 Volkswagen Golf, click on one of the links below.